all of the lessons that you learn when you're on this planet are usable information. That's why souls come down here. Like I was mentioning before, for example, Aya, he's been alive for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But he's been living in wealth and prosperity for thousands and thousands of years. So every now and then you have to refresh in darkness, refresh in misery. So what you do is you incarnate on a planet somewhere of your choosing, right? And that is actually you going back to school. It's like going to college, right? And you're going back to learn a lesson. We were talking to Ryan about what we believe were some of his past lives. One of the advantages of this family is that when the collective speaks to us, we gain additional information and knowledge about events in our own lives when we're ready to absorb that information. Because you have to be in a state of readiness too. You have to be ready and be open to the fact that your prior lifetimes, which are accrued on your DNA, that knowledge is there forever. And you can access some of this knowledge today. And as the repression fields on this planet drop, we're able to see more and more down our own timelines, which is a skill that eventually all of you can develop. It's everyone's like, oh wow, soul images, look what Victoria can do, but I'm telling you that in time, all of you probably will be able to develop similar powers. One of the things we were talking about was different timelines that Ryan had gone down in different events and different lives that he's experienced, and it seems like they always seem to center around military. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I guess. I mean, in some way.
Well, you must admit that you have an affinity for military information. You're skilled with several different firearms, and you yourself have, you've done a lot of training. You also are extremely good at these kind of games as well. Of course, and you also understand the difference between a game and reality, which, well, this reality anyhow, if you want to call it one of many. But we were talking with Ryan earlier, and we noticed the trend that he keeps appears to be reincarnated to either be in the military, join the military, or in his past lives he was a German once, we believe, in the First World War. In the Second World War, we believe he was an American that landed on one of the beaches, probably Normandy it was? Yeah, he remembers exactly, right down to the smell of gunpowder and seeing friends blown up. I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff that he's seen.
Some of the stuff that I've seen has kind of really just felt like a dream. I don't really know how else to put it. I mean, it's like you see it, but you don't really live through it, but you see it.
It's reoccurring dreams.
It is memory. It is memory that you dream.
Because in your subconscious, you're allowed to unlock this information. It's where it starts, right? So
I just remember a beach, being on some kind of metal boat that they had, and I recognized it immediately because I played a lot of games like that, so I don't know if that was related as to why I had a dream, but I remember the doors opening and 3 of my friends getting gunned down and part of his brain landing in my face as I ran and pushed past his corpse.
Okay, these are
Artillery rounds went off around me,
Yeah.
and I got sprayed down by Germans. It didn't hit me, but it had kicked the sand up in my face.
I told you, Normandy.
Yeah.
Normandy Beach. That was a very bad battle.
And the thing is, when you have a dream, usually it's not that vivid unless it's also connected to a memory. And there may be a lesson there that lifetime is trying to express to you now, maybe information that you need. And the good thing about this, that we can do this, is because I have a background in psychology, one of the fields I studied was dream interpretation and lucid dreaming. And when I hear these kind of things, I know the difference between what was basically a reoccurring dream or a PTSD dream that you would have, because that is a very traumatic event and he remembers it very vividly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not... like I said, it felt like a dream, so I'm not claiming to have ever been this person, but...
Well, let me explain something to you, is that when you start having this lucid dreaming, it is your past life memories that are starting to reinitiate themselves. And right now, it's happening to a lot of people. They're getting all these weird, strange dreams and they don't understand them. And they don't know what it means. But the more that you dream, the more you remember your past and who you were and what you did in a different time, a different era. And those dreams and those past lives are now coming forward because they need to explain to you now something that you have to work on.
You know, for thousands of years, people understood dreams as things that were there to guide people. They were the, quote, gods talking to the humans, talking to the people on this planet, letting them know of potential things that were about to happen, could happen, may have happened, and that, or should happen. So with the actual interpretation of, for example, what Ryan is having, this is beyond a typical dream. And of course, all of our dreams are affected by our current reality as well, which is why sometimes you dream things that you interact with. Like, let's say you watch a horror movie, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street, for example, you know, the guy with the slashy fingers,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is a projection of a demonic being, but that's a whole different,
Of course.
another story. This kind of thing, when it happens, can be very traumatic to you. And they know that in horror dreams, what they're doing is they're triggering a deep trauma inside of you, because you'll suppress this stuff and say, oh, this isn't real, to your subconscious. So your subconscious encapsulates those thoughts. And what happens is they get locked into these little bubbles that can then split off and eventually cause you additional dysfunctions in your conscious level. If you follow what I'm saying
No,
here.
I do, because some of these, like Nightmare on Elm Street and these Jason movies, they're showing you events that have actually may have occurred to you in your past life. You may have gone through a traumatic event like this. For instance, we now know that some of those bunkers inside our Earth are thousands of years old. Okay, there are vampiric beings who lived in them, who still live in them. So who's to say that what you're dreaming isn't a reality of something that happened to you, say, in the 17th or 18th century?
And it will be tailored or characterized or transmuted into something that makes sense because of what you've experienced in today's day and age. That's why you can have a dream that appears to be in today's modern setting, but you're actually working out deeper psychological issues, and it's a way for your body to vent.
Yeah.
And it allows you, that's why you have to go into REM sleep, or you will go absolutely insane, because you can't suppress some of this stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
Which is why I tell everybody one of the most important things is try to get uninterrupted sleep. Now, that's not easy, but if you can't get uninterrupted sleep, then at least sleep extra hours whenever you're under mental duress, because it will help you tremendously. It allows your mind time to think and consider what to do. It allows you to run it through your DNA and your subconscious, which can filter out a lot of this crap, which then comes back to the surface, and it can be more controlled energy that you can then use in your daily life. So, and what I mean by lucid dreaming is that at some point, if you get really good at this, sleeping extra, meditation, you can begin to take control of your subconscious dreams.
Yes.
And this was one of the things that the tribal people taught, that you have to be able to defeat your adversaries and control your reality in your subconscious before you will be able to fully control that of your conscious life. And this is why also deep embeds can be put into your subconscious that force you to do certain conscious behaviors. So the best way to dissipate that is to go into your dreams and work out whatever traumatic event is happening and dissipate that traumatic event, or reduce it to nothingness, and say, this no longer bothers me. I'll give you an example. Some people have reoccurring dreams of falling and falling and falling.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's a jolt and they wake up and they think, well, that must have been my body hitting the ground and I woke up out of the dream. Well, that's one way to interpret it. But then all of a sudden, you enter into this dream and you're falling once, and you say, oh no, it doesn't matter if I'm falling. I have a parachute on my back. And you pull the parachute and you see yourself coming to the ground, and when you touch down, you're happy and smiling because you overcame something. This is a technique that you can use to dissipate trauma. Whatever the trauma is, turn it into something ridiculous that can't happen. And they actually try to teach you these things because, for example, in the series Harry Potter, they talked about manifesting your darkest fear, and then the power through your wand would be ridiculous. You turn your darkness into something funny and ridiculous. And we've been advised about doing this before. Forgive me, I'm on a roll here because I'm this is like a direct channel
Yeah.
almost. But the beings around us are telling us that turning serious trauma into funny, ridiculous things instantly deprives it of power and prevents it from harming you. So yeah, you could learn a lot just watching the Harry Potter series.
And there's a lot of truth in that too, because everybody in this family in the last couple of weeks, maybe a month, has been having some pretty
We're getting tested
bad
too.
dreams.
Oh yeah.
And I had one the other night. For 2 nights I was seeing this owl come to the tree out the front of our home. Of course, we all know what the owl represents, right? On this planet it's been inverted. It used to be once represented as a wise creature, but on this planet it's part of, the Satanistic practices. So this white owl was coming to the tree out the front of our house, and the first night I just watched it and then it flew off. The second night it came back, and it shape-shifted into a vampiric being. And you don't think they're not around? They are very much here on this planet. And this vampiric being was about to get a shot off on me, but I got my lightning bolt out first, and I got it first, and it flew off with its tail feathers on fire. So I'm telling you that in your dreams you can resist them. It takes practice.
And the thing is, they can manipulate the way you think or feel in your dreams, but only you can actually hurt them, and they know this. That's why they're trying to take control of your emotions right away. They want to harp on the negativity, and they want to attack and drain your life essence through negativity.
Yeah.
And that's why you're constantly surrounded by bad news and setbacks and things taking time and everything going wrong. So what they're actually doing is they're trying to use that negativity that's being pushed out there, the programming, right, that everyone likes to watch. And then once it takes control of your mind, you fall into almost like this hypnotic state, because that's exactly how they reach you. All of these television programmings and all of these devices all push you into a lower sleep status. They call it a beta wave status, right?
Yeah.
Or lower, to the point to where you will accept anything that they tell you, because when you're in that dreamlike state, if you haven't developed lucid dreaming or the power to resist it, or at least tell yourself everything I'm watching is a lie, then these are deep acceptance programs where you are subconsciously saying, yeah, I suppose this is true. Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, it might be true. Because they're hitting you with this kind of subliminal pulsing that allows you to be in that mental state where you just assume whatever you're seeing is true. But those of us that know this, it's a trick, you can say, I do not believe it.
Right.
I actively am saying, I do not believe this. And by doing that, all of the fake and phoniness begins to melt away in your life, and you begin to see clear what's going on, and much more so than most people.
That's why I say to you guys that you should look at this world from the outside looking in. Like you're a stranger on this planet and you're observing it from the outside looking in. If you go to, say for instance, I'll give you a really good example here. If there's a new estate of homes opening up, but you can't get in the door, what do you do? If you can't get in the door of a brand new home that is being a showcased home for everybody to go and see. If you can't get in the door, most people will walk around the house and try and look in the windows, right, to see what's in there.
Yeah.
That's how you have to see yourself in this matrix, in this 3D world, because it's the only way you'll ever understand some of the dimensional aspects that are happening. Otherwise, you get too involved inside of it and you can't get out.
Well, as you can see, this is a pretty deep topic. I know already that Father's hoping this will be a video. Because what we're trying to do here, people, we've been questioned and asked, what do you guys get out of this? Well, what we get out of this is more people knowing the truth.
Yeah.
And as you can see, we're not trying to tell people, that you're part of some wacky religion or something. We're just saying we want you to think outside the box. That's what Victoria's telling you to do here, is think outside the box.
Yeah. Just think of yourself shopping for a new home and you want to see what the showcase models have got, but you're not sure if that's the right color for you or the right kitchen design. You know what I'm saying? You can look at this world from a very different aspect. You can treat it like you're shopping to stay here on this planet and grow and develop, or you're going to be moving on when the time comes. And so you have to take everything that you see and hear right now in this 3D reality as a game. And you're just one of those pawns on the game. You got to learn how to play the game. It's very important that you understand that.
Yeah, and there's one thing I want you to understand that a lot of people don't understand either. And remember, this is an inverted world. You know that saying, seeing is believing? This was brought up to us recently, so we thought about this and said, you know what? It's an inverted world, so guess what? Believing is seeing. And once you understand that, then you grasp onto a true reality that most people don't get, that you have to believe that there are more than other things out there in order for you to then be able to see it. It's kind of wacky. I mean, you know it's out there, but you have to believe that it's actually out there before that connection will happen. That means your mind is open to the way that Father wanted this world to be originally, which was a place where you could manifest the things you wanted as long as it was in a free will scenario. Then he was good with it. He said, well, I want my children to be able to manifest anything that they want to so that they can go to this world and learn what it's going to be like. Yes, will you just put your hands out and say, I would like a brand new log cabin home? Bloop.
And you guys,
You had that ability at one point, believe it or not.
yes, some of you are starting to figure out that your energy can create reality. Okay, so as I've said to you guys before, I create all the time in the fourth dimension, and I've helped a lot of my family at Homeland build this town, this place that they live in within that dimension, just like you live.
Yeah,
say,
I mean, Victoria does it all the time. We're always hitting her up for stuff. Hey, listen, we could use a few more homes over here or something like that. And she'll sit back and envision it. Now, the thing is, it takes time to appear, but the smaller things that she makes appear immediately. So, like, she's able to give us small things that I can't really go into because you'd have to have knowledge of this place and everything. But she can create, for example, you would call them like credits. Okay,
yes, I can create credits.
They're called pleases, but that's another whole story. We'll get into that later. So we're like, hey, Victoria, you know, I could use 1,000 pleases, and this creates kind of an economy for these things, and they're usable at Father's conservatory.
Yes.
Because he has a place where you can go shopping. I know you guys
I
won't
know.
believe this crap. It's just utterly, I don't believe it. I'm telling you, when you open up to the divine, you begin to have all these manifestations of good things. But the thing is, if you don't believe it, if you don't accept Father's goodness, he's not going to give it to you. Father's pretty insistent that you have to believe that Father will bless you. You have to believe that good things are going to happen. And if you don't believe that, well, then you're going to get exactly what you believe.
Exactly. So if you have no belief, or you say that doesn't work, or that's just a bunch of gobbledygook, then that's exactly what you'll get.
Yes. There is an old saying. You are both a millionaire and a pauper. Whatever you believe. Well, most people know where you put your energy is where something grows, right?
I can tell you guys for a fact that, you know, when you create, we are very, very creative. Father, that was one of the gifts that he gave to us, was that we could create. Some other species can't do that. I want you guys to understand.
Yeah, it's completely alien to them, no pun intended.
But you were given those gifts, but you have to learn how to use them. Just like in, for instance, if you've ever watched, I know, the movie that came out about 5 years ago, the World of Warcraft movie, okay? When the mage made a portal and he opened it up. Do you guys realize that you have the power to do these things? And I do it all the time in the fourth dimension. I couldn't do it in this dimension because we had that reptilian darker overlay that was upon our planet, which prevented us from doing that.
I'm going to remind you guys again, because I know there's the Doubting Thomases and the Debbie Downers. I think that's the new one we learned. Is gaming theory is critical to the universe.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done it yet, you need to engage yourself in some kind of online gaming scenario. I'm not pushing any one particular game. There are plenty out there. You can just look it up and find the one that's best for you, right? Excuse me. But I want you to understand that gaming theory is important to know. Part of what you come to this planet for is to learn gaming theory.
Yeah.
Because the whole universe operates on gaming theory. Everything that you see in these other gaming scenarios are realities that exist, and they are nothing more than training episodes for people to teach them how to use this kind of unique thing. Because if you've never played any of these strategy games or anything, you're really missing out something important in your ability to manifest, because it puts thinking into sockets and locations and devices and equipment. And once you understand this, you can then begin to mimic this in real life, where you begin to create things for yourself that are physical, are non-physical, but mental constructs that eventually can lead to physical constructs and the ability to fix things that you couldn't even imagine. Michael practices this all the time. He's able to repair certain things that other people can't for whatever reason. He just seems to have this skill. He can fix just about anything. He has some issues with his eyesight, but I've seen him demonstrate the skill where he can look at a craftsman once and watch something and then reproduce that. I mean, and it's like Victoria. She can see down people's timelines. How many people can do that? That's a very difficult skill, but she's always been a seer, you see, and that's why if she produces something for you, you should pay attention to it no matter what you think about it. There are some people that have understood this, and the ones that do seem to benefit from and like I said, we really haven't had anyone be completely upset with anything that we've done as far as soul images. Although some of them, we had one or two that are like they don't understand it. But I said you need to look at it and keep looking at it, and eventually you're going to come to a point where that soul image means something very powerful to you, to the people around it, to those that see it, because this is a spiritually charged thing. It's created with energy. Think about this. Aradil spends hours focusing her energy on creating this image for you. It is filled with all kinds of little clues and tidbits that the universe, because remember, we're all electronically one being. We're just extensions of Father. And those that are connected to Father can see right down the energy line and see exactly what's going on. And the stronger you get with Father, the more powerful your skills will develop. And each of us have different skills.
Yeah, exactly. Father gave us different skills so that we could use them as a group, not just one being, but that we could come together with, say, one person could see down the future a week or two. Another person could see sickness inside another being. It would show up like, orange coloration in their body. We were all given different skills. Some of us have given, a couple of different skills. So, for instance, this skill of looking down your timeline is really strange for me, because sometimes I'm standing there talking to people and all of a sudden their faces change.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at somebody else from a different time, and I know it's them, but it's not them, and trying to explain to people that your past lives can also be existing at the same time you're existing, because they may be in another dimension, in another time differentiation of what you have. They can actually be living their own lives somewhere else.
I know, it's mind-blowing when you get into it, because people are like, look, you could be talking to yourself 20 years or 100 or 200 years down the timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. That's really, wow, man. But you see, that's the deal. That's what you've been separated from.
Yeah.
That is the real world. That is the truth. But you see, you have been lied to since the very day you were born on this planet.
The very day you were, from the time that you could open your eyes, you were shown things that were not true. Your parents would talk, they would read you bedtime stories, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of those bedtime stories were truthful, like Jack and the Beanstalk. The giants upon this planet very much existed, and if you've been following some of the footprints in the stone, you will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And let me tell you, wait till they find out what this earth is really comprised of.
Yeah.
A lot of you aren't going to believe that. Do you realize most of what you are upon as far as the skin of this earth used to be giant beings?
Yeah.
Some of them laid down their life to create their physical form, to create part of this planet. And these were done with huge forge machines that came in. Think of an apple peeler, but in reverse. Have you ever seen those machines that can peel an apple into different layers and stuff? Well, think of it in reverse, where there's the core that was already there, and now this machine comes and wraps this to a certain level, and then you have to put the skin of it on the apple, which many of which were gigantic bodies that were used to form the original outlay. And when you back up and look down from above, you'll understand why the whole world is a series of interlocking bodies and things that have been fossilized. And it's amazing what they used to create the skin of this earth originally. Now it's turned into something that you call earth, which is basically crushed boulders, rocks, and what that really is, those were flakes of skin and other things from gigantic beings that were hundreds of miles in length.
And I want to tell you guys, the Lord of the Rings series, the movies, the books, they talk about Yavanna as the elves. She was their ancestor. Yavanna is Gaia's sister.
Yeah, because good old J.R.R. Tolkien raided parts of the Vatican, and they had history books.
Yeah.
And he got hold of some history books.
He sure did.
These stories are ancient stories that existed a very long time ago on this planet, when there were elves and dwarves, and yeah, I know, I can hear you now going, oh yeah, right. Well, ask yourself this. What better way to get people to not believe in something than to put the truth right in front of them and just put a little label called fantasy. Fantasy. Oh yeah, if you believe this, that's fine, but you need to know it's not real. Well, we live in a what? An inverted world? So I would think that everything we think is true is a lie, and everything we think is fantasy is probably pretty close to the mark. Maybe not exactly. I'm sure some creative liberties were taken in a lot of this stuff. Okay, kind of like all the Star Trek logs and stuff. People are like, oh yeah, that's a wonderful story. Yeah, ask yourself why it resonated with so many people. Because they know it's all true. Mm-hmm. Inside, deep down inside, you know it's all true. Yes, you do.
And also in the movie, you will hear Gandalf. I think it's in the second movie, where he goes to visit the king, and he purifies the king because he was under the control of the other wizard. Imagine that, being under the control of another being. So anyway, he cleanses him, and he finds out that his son died. And he was down on the plane with his son. And he said, your son will find his way to the halls of his ancestors. His father's. And then he said, Westu. We didn't get that word from the movie. We were taught that word from our ancient family. And then we heard it in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, they turned it into basically, because what they were doing was researching ancient lore.
Yes.
And this was a greeting that was given. So it's not like Victoria all of a sudden decided to take this from the Tolkien series.
No.
This greeting existed for thousands of years, long before any of us had it. And of course, Tolkien, being the good researcher that he was, found out this information and added it as a greeting of the people in the West, right? West to, which actually meant the inversion was that they always wanted to be to the West. That's where their heart was, to the West. So, but yet it was considered to be an interpretation of an ancient language. But yet it had the word West in it. Okay, whatever you say. It was probably pronounced more like Westura, which is west that we all go. Where we go one, we go all kind of crap. Something along that lines. But.
So we've been saying that word, I think, even before the movie came out. We were saying that word.
Yeah,
So,
and it's on When the Ancients Speak.
Uh-huh.
At the end, when Victoria's done talking and everything, it says Westu. In other words, that's a greeting, saying, there you go.
It's a blessing, Thank you. May good things happen.
Blessings from the West to you.
Yes.
West to you. West to.
So we just want you to know that these beings who write these stories, these amazing stories, got them from somewhere.
Yeah, they didn't make them up. They didn't create them. The Silmarillion, which J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, was essentially an ancient history of the gods and goddesses that created this world. Yeah. They used a lot of crystal power.
Yeah.
Crystal power. Da, da, da. Remember, the Silmarillion was this beautified godlike crown that you could wear that gave the wearer godlike abilities, and it was fractured and shattered, and each of the gods ended up with a shard of this stuff, okay? There have been other books that have been written that deal with shards and energy and mental powers. One comes to mind called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. That was a Star Wars book about Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia, which, you know, in the beginning, before the story came to any fruition, Princess Leia was actually had the hots for Luke, right? And then you find out they make them brother and sister. They did that on purpose, too, because they wanted to teach you how some of the ancient ways were kind of yucky. But, yeah, there was some of that stuff going on, brother and sister stuff.
There's, you know, I think I've said this before in one of our videos, too, about the dark crystal. You guys have no idea, or some of you do now, because I think about 18 months ago I put out a video about this, that this was really what happened to Gaia. A shard, a crystal shard. They encapsulated her essence in a dark crystal, the reptilians on this planet, and they used it as weather control. And I have seen a video at least twice now of the East Coast where there was this dark metaphor that appeared like a crystal, just like the one that was in the movie.
The ones that appeared, they were spinning in the air,
and they
too.
were spinning in the air.
And what do you call them? There's another name for these things.
Well, they were using Gaia's essence to control the weather across this planet.
They would invert the energy.
Yes.
So Gaia went from this loving being that would create beautiful weather that would be, you know, weather that would fulfill the heart. Because that way in the fall and winter, fall and winter used to be the most magnificent and etheric time in this place, because even though it was cold, that all the beings had devices that allowed them to maintain body warmth so that they could go out and play in the snow, you see.
Yeah.
And these devices were sometimes forged or crafted into different types of rings. Imagine that. You could wear a ring that projected energy that kept you warm. I wonder where they got the idea of the 3 rings for the elvish kings under the sky, and 5 for the dark lords on the throne. Yeah, whatever. I just wanted you guys to understand that all of this stuff comes from real things that happen that were blended together to create a super mind fuck that everyone goes, wow, that's the most amazing story I've ever heard. Because you know lots of it is real and it actually happened, doofus. Stop being a drone. Wake up.
Yeah.
There you go.
This was long before Atlantis, people. This wasn't like 60, 70,000 years ago. This was millions of years ago when the Earth was young. Okay? There were gods and goddesses here who were helping to form this planet.
Yep.
You've been told that this is all...
Just happened.
Just
There was
happened.
a gigantic explosion and Earth formed. Come on. I mean, really, does anyone actually believe? They must have been laughing, the reptilians coming up with this stuff.
yeah.
Going, I know, we'll tell them, you know, it's kind of like saying you could throw a hand grenade in a room and there'd be an explosion and it would organize into books, equipment, cars. I mean, come on, if you throw a hand grenade in a room, what happens? Things are in absolute chaos.
But even Kashi has spoken about the records that were burned
Yeah.
in Alexandria.
But not all of them.
Not all of
The
them.
Vatican
Some,
seized a
they
lot of
took
them.
'em.
And guess what? They're supposed to release all of this very soon here.
Yeah, and then when it comes out that there were giants on this earth, and it comes out that there were great trees that are now just on the Mesa Plains. You think the Mesa Plains, these square rocks?
Yeah, how do
are
you
just
form an
natural?
absolutely flat top
They're
in a
tree
world
trunks.
that doesn't create straight lines? Explain that to me,
They're
please.
tree trunks. And in Antarctica, they're using tree trunks as part of their bases. We saw a helicopter fly into Antarctica, and what did he land on?
It was a large tree trunk.
A tree trunk.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah. But we're all just nuts.
Well, of course. If you're crazy in this world, invert it. You're normal.
Yes.
Okay? It's not that something went wrong with you. It's something went right with you.
And,
Do you get that? They're scared of you. They know what you can do. That's why they're trying to kill all of you.
Let me tell you something else. When you open your mind to this and you start looking at your earth, like I said, from someone on the outside looking in,
it makes a whole lot
you can see it.
more sense. Yes, it does.
And then the other entities that are not on this planet, that are living at the currently, like in the Liberation Fleet, will start talking to you more because you will accept them more readily. The reason why a lot of these beings will not speak to you is because you hold back your ability to comprehend what really happened to you. They're here to protect Gaia.
They don't like talking to people that don't have imagination.
Right.
Unless they're coming to harvest your ass, okay? Other than that, yeah, you'll do. You look tasty. Nice buttocks. We'll cook that up really good. But I'm here to tell you, people, that seeing is believing, but then believing will allow you to see.
Yeah.
That's the part many people are missing. And I don't know why they don't get this part. I've heard there are some brilliant beings out there that get this, that some of which teach, so I'm amazed to hear some of this stuff now finally coming out. But people, the reason why they start these saying, seeing is believing. In other words, you gotta wait until you're told what to see before you can accept it. No, it's the other way around. You have to open your mind to the possibility that could exist. Then you can attune yourself to see whatever exists in that reality.
And you know something else, guys? When you understand that the reality that you live in is the falsehood, but the fantasy that you were taught as a child is the
real.
reality, then you will come to understand your power, your intuitive abilities, your empathic abilities, your knowledge and your thirst that you've always had for understanding what's outside of this planet. It will all fit together because that's who you really are.
But I do want to caution one thing. This does not mean that you should then rush out and believe everything that everyone is saying either.
No.
The other side of this coin is that you have to maintain a personality specifically attuned to the matrix so that you can function in day-to-day reality. For example, you may know that you're going to live to be 100 million years old, but your body is only going to live to be, say, maybe 100, 110, 120 if you're lucky, at least with current technology. Of course, we've got that coming up too, where you'll be able to age regress at some point. But what I'm trying to say is that you have to have a face for society and then a private spiritual face that you connect with Father all the time, and you use your societal face to go out and interact in the Matrix, because if you do certain things outside of the Matrix is going to come and punish you.
Yeah.
You know that. Like, you can't just start walking around killing people because you think that that's going to free them, even though that's true. You cannot violate the laws that were prescribed, because part of what you agreed to was that you would live by the Matrix laws, but you are still allowed to fight against unjust laws. That's a different story altogether. But I wanted to put that out, that you must maintain a calm and understanding presence that also will project this reality. And with that, I think what we'll say is thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Please visit whentheancientspeak.com. We also have a donate key. We don't get upset if people decide to throw us $5, $10, $20 every now and then. It helps us to stay online. Prices are going up. And we also want to remind you,
Before we go, I have something, a poem or a quote that George Orwell said for 1984, if you've ever seen the movie. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and every street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. So, the falsehood that you live in was created for you by people who didn't want you to know anything other than what they taught you. Think about that for a second.
blessings of love and light, and don't forget to hit the donate button tonight. Hey, thank you, everybody, and also keep in mind soul images are out there. It's one of the ways that we pay our bills. And those of you that are lost or not sure where to go, once you have a soul image done, you can look at it and look at it and look at it, and at some point something's going to click, and it's going to help you with what your prior self that thinks the one that needs the most attention is out there screaming its head off saying, you haven't learned this lesson yet, you need to pay attention here. Why are you going away from this lesson? This is how you should be living. This is what you should be doing. Remember, a soul image, just $39.95, and it helps the Kellys, and it helps you, and it helps